Yeah, it comes like this, it goes around like that, and then it goes out this way, then out to the Tuscarora Pike.
Okay. And this is theirs, that's theirs. And the school's kind of in here, my understanding. Okay. So,
Here's the property.
Tuscarora Pike's
Down on
right.
Orchard right there.
Yeah. Here's Tuscarora Pike.
So here's the property.
See, I'm assuming right here where the city line is,
Right there. Yep.
is that right there.
It goes out this way.
Yes.
So they have this.
For some reason
That little part right there.
that side of the road is the city. Not sure why, but this and this, these two. So the hatched area, the gray, is what's in our zone.
Those two.
Yeah, it is. It is a little over half.
All right.
Good?
You were good.
Cool. Call to order the Berkeley County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for February 23rd, 2022. First order be the roll call from Sarah.
Corey Rodriguez,
Present.
John Bushman, Jeffrey Campbell,
Here.
Jeffrey Smith, Dan Sharkey.
Present.
Okay, first item is approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, approval of meeting minutes from January 25th, 2022 meeting. Any discussion on the minutes? If not, could I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda would be our public hearing. Have a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll do so.
Yeah,
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is open. Yeah, I'll let. She's gonna get this stuff.
I think they left the battery plugged. Okay. I'm just gonna talk really loud because I don't think the batteries are full. So yes, this is a public hearing for a request for special exception and variance. The project is Martinsburg Seventh-day Adventist Church, file number 2201-017 tied to 2110-392. The owner is the Chesapeake Conference Association of Seventh-day Adventists, and the engineer is Fox and Associates. It's located in the Arden District, tax map 36, parcel 11, and tax map 2, parcel 6.1. The property is located on the west side of Delmar Orchard Road, approximately 1,300 feet south of its intersection with Tuscarora Pike. The major plan change proposes the construction of a private elementary school building and associated infrastructure, including water and sewer service lines, a drop-off area, parking, a playground, and a retaining wall. The applicant is requesting a special exception in accordance with section 5023 of the Tuscarora Community Zoning Ordinance to construct a private school. Also, the applicant is requesting a variance to section 602.2, table of minimum yard requirements, requiring a front setback of 150 feet and a side setback of 100 feet. The applicant is proposing a front setback of 100 feet and a side setback of 44 feet. On February 7th, 2022, the Planning Commission voted to advance the project to the Board of Zoning Appeals with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Could we, I guess, next have somebody, whoever's going to speak first for the school?
Kenneth Barton of the law firm of Steptoe & Johnson. On behalf of the applicant, I'm also joined by Steve Sianovich from Fox & Associates, who is the engineer on the project. Mr. Campbell, did you want to make some comments?
I'm going to wait until after your presentation.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. President, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, my name is Ken Barton. Again, I'm with the law firm of Steptoe & Johnson, and it's my privilege to be representing this Martinsburg Seventh-day Adventist Church and School program. As you know, I'm also going to be joined by a number of members of the parish team, most notably Pastor David Livergood, Terry Hess, who's a local member of the church, Melissa Badger, who's the principal of the school, and then some parents, Sean Loomis and Philip Blair. The church has decided, in order to expedite the presentation, that David would be the folks who would actually speak. But as you can see, we have a number of other members here who I think if they raise their hands, they would be supportive of this project. Are you ready about that? So, last time I was in front of, I had a group here, you may recall, the folks who were here were not particularly happy with me when we were trying to eliminate the zoning ordinance some months ago before the Planning Commission. As you know from the process, this project has already received a minimum review from the Planning Commission. As a precursor to coming here tonight, the Planning Commission had to look at the issue of should a special exception be granted and should the variance of the setback requirements be granted. And I'm pleased to report that, as you received in the written recommendation, that they unanimously support advancement of this project as a school with the special exception and with the setbacks changed. This is an interesting project because, first of all, this is what the school will look like when it's done. And it's on a campus. If you've been out Delmar Orchard Road, you see the church it's right across the street from Lee Trace Apartments. It's up on the hill. The church is on the left. The school is slated to be on the right. And interestingly, as Laura mentioned to you, this is here as a plan change. And it's here as a plan change because back in 2013, there was a plan change that kind of laid this out. So here's the church. As you'll see here, it says existing church. This is the box where the school is going to go. And at the time, the plan change was to bring in this gravels area and to do all this improvements. And that was done. So so if you go out there right now, you've got base course roads, you've got infrastructure, you've got basically the starting point. What's left to do is obviously the top work. So it's interesting, and the church spent several $100,000 to get to that point. So there has been significant work done out there. Interestingly, I don't know, and I can't find any record that this came to the Board of Zoning Appeals back in 2013. Frankly, I'm not sure that anybody realized that there was a zoning ordinance, but for whatever reason, when then Fox brought this project back to the Planning Commission for the actual school, and as you see in the major plan change that's in your packet, that design, then there became a question of, well, maybe we have to go over to the Planning Commission and then on to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Based upon, and obviously I'm here obviously asking that you approve both, but that would not be the end of this project. This project is still going to have to go back to the Planning Commission. We'll have to comply with all of the requirements of the Berkeley County subdivision ordinance before a school ever gets built and before building permits are ever done. So there will be sketch plans, they'll have to get all of their approvals, DOH will have to get permits, so all of that still needs to be done. So this is the absolute very starting point. So let's talk about where we're at. Under the Tuscarora zoning ordinance, a school can be granted as a special exception to the Tuscarora zoning ordinance. And in faith-based schools, what you might see, maybe if you've noticed, it's very popular for the faith-based school to be on the same campus with the church. And it makes sense because it's a fostering of the mission of the church to educate the children. And so it is very advantageous to be able to have the school where it's proposed to be. My children went to high school up in Hagerstown, and there the school was right by the church, and it allows the students to be able to engage in the faith-based approach of what they're doing. What you are asked to do under section 703.31, or section 703.3, as you probably know, are the general requirements of what you have to consider on whether you're going to grant a special exception. And I would like to go through them with you if I may. First, the proposed use has to be in harmony with the purpose of the Berkeley County Comprehensive Plan, and I would suggest to you that it is. This is in a growth area. If you look at the map, growth areas are considered areas of high-density housing, neighborhood businesses, and here it's already next. It will already be next to the church. If you look across the street, you have a high-density Lee Trace apartments, so it's clearly in harmony with the comprehensive plan. Second issue is under 703.32, the location and size of the use, the nature and intensity of the operation involved, conducted and or connected with, the size of the site in relation to it, the location of the site with respect to streets giving access to it, are such that it will be in harmony with and appropriate to the orderly development of the district in which it's located. Again, this is going to actually be off-site because in order to get to the school itself, the folks will have to make a right, go up the hill on a drive, and the school will be on the right and the church will be on the left. So this is going to be in harmony. There's not going to be access issues. It's certainly the access coming out of the church is going to be a whole lot easier than getting out of Lee Trace apartments. So I would suggest that it is in fact will be in harmony with the development. 703.33 says the location, nature, and height of the buildings, walls, and fences, the nature and extent of the landscaping on the site are such that it will not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of other adjacent lands or buildings. Basically, this is probably going to be the last thing that's in that area. It's going to be between the church and a home. There's some residential area homes on Delmar Orchard Road leading up to that site. So it's going to be in harmony because nothing else is going to go in there. This will be probably the final piece, certainly along Delmar Orchard Road within that area. So clearly there won't be any, it won't discourage any use of any adjacent properties. Under 703.34, you have to find that the operations in connection with this use will not be any more objectionable than nearby properties by reason of noise, fume, vibrations, or other characteristics that would question the use of not being a permitted use. Again, this is going to be a school. It's going to be primarily operational school days. I'm sure there are going to be some activities in the evenings. But again, it's not going to be and create any greater burden on that area than what's already there. Under 703.35, the parking areas have to be of adequate size for particular use, properly located, suitably screened from adjoining uses, and the entrance and exit drive shall be laid out to achieve maximum safety. Again, not only would we suggest that the design right now does approve that, but that's something that the Planning Commission does. Planning staff and the Department of Highways will be all over this one because you don't get an entrance permit for this particular use from DOH unless they're satisfied that it's going to be safe. And that's going to be, the Planning Commission will be the guardian for whether the site plan actually works. And finally, there must be adequate public utilities and sewage and so forth, and that's not a problem. The infrastructure is all there. So I would obviously suggest that we comply with all of the requirements of the special exception, and I would urge you, because of the fact that this is important to the mission of this church, that you would grant the special exception. Mr. President, I don't know if you want to address, you want me to go ahead and present on the variance issue now, or whether you want to.
I think you can go. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Mr. Sianovich is, I try not to go anywhere where engineers are involved, so I always let the engineers have the first crack at what we've got here. So without further ado, let me invite Steve Sianovich to come up and give us his thoughts on the variance. And then I may have a few comments because I just can't resist to come back to the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Steve Sianovich. I'm the Senior Project Manager with Fox and Associates with our office located in Hagerstown, Maryland. I'd like to make just a few brief comments with regard to the exhibit we have on the easel here. What's depicted in the blue line is the setbacks that are prescribed by the 2009 Berkeley County subdivision ordinance. What's depicted by the red line are the setbacks that are a part of the 1975 Tuscarora zoning district ordinance. What's represented in this gray color is the school building as proposed and shown on this one. As you can see, and as Laura explained in her staff report, with the Tuscarora zoning district setback being 100 feet, we are seeking relief from 100 feet to 44 feet, with the face of the school building being located 45 feet off of the property line. So we put 1 foot of error within this request, to have a little bit extra. We're not smack on the building restriction line should this board opt to grant the relief restriction. What's represented in the red line work here, and you can see it takes the same shape as the school. We picked up the school in gray, turned that color to red, and pulled it down to the point where we would be on the 100-foot building restriction line. And you can see what problems that creates with the existing drive aisles, parking areas, and so forth that Mr. Martin explained earlier using this exhibit. Those are the brief comments that I wanted to make with regard to the geometric constraints due to other approvals that were granted many years ago in the project and then followed through by the church group. I'd be happy to answer any questions with regard to what's on this foam core or any other questions you may have.
On the right side of the building, the school building, it's like 74 feet, I think, to the setback line. Not the red line, but the way you have it now.
This point,
No, the back of that building.
at the back of the building, this is the gymnasium area.
That's 47 feet to the line, I think, to the property line.
I was left with the impression that this is graphically depicted as physically 45 feet from the proposed building construction to the property line. Therefore, we sought relief from 100 feet to 44 feet, or that 45-foot dimension from the property line to the building would still be, the building would result in being in the building envelope that we're seeking relief on.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question?
The other end of the building is like 74 feet to the property line, roughly.
I'd have to scale that dimension. I don't have the dimension with me.
It was on the plan that way. I guess my first question is, why can that gymnasium not be turned 90 degrees? I know there's parking there, but parking can be done in different ways. But why can't it be turned the other way?
That's more of an architectural question
Right.
than us as the civil would answer. It's more, again, geared to the architect. But I do go back to some of these other exhibits where we have existing infrastructure that cost thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to install, and to remove that could potentially jeopardize really the project's budget.
Mm-hmm.
When that work was approved, implemented, and put in place with the goal years ago to be able to build the facility that you see depicted in gray on this exhibit.
If the building was pulled where the red lines are, pulled closer to the church, that would mean you could pick up 20 feet if you eliminate that parking strip along there.
Well, that's correct, but when you look at how the school building is depicted here.
Mhm.
You could see there's a drop-off canopy.
Right.
Can anyone see that?
They can drop it.
So that canopy would be in this area.
Mhm.
So that would encroach into this and really cause a real burden with regard to parking, drive aisles, and things of that nature, and geometric constraints on the site, should the 100-foot setback be need to be observed.
Okay. So the canopy would encroach on this church building.
Not necessarily on the building, but in the means of ingress, egress, the drive aisle. That would be a shared drive aisle between the church building and some of the other facilities on the site.
How big is the property total? How many acres?
12.57, 12.6 around there.
It just seems to me, in looking at that, and I was out there looking at the property and so forth, that some minor changes, I know you have the plans already set up and everything, but some minor changes, it has to go back to the planning commission anyway.
Multiple times,
Yeah.
actually.
So some minor changes could improve the side setback. I don't think the front setback is much of an issue. But the side setback is, it's 40 some feet over the limit.
The side setback on this.
Yeah, where the
building,
gymnasium is.
effectively being the rear of the building.
Right. That's why I mentioned, what would be the possibility of turning the gymnasium to line up with those other buildings especially.
Yeah.
Which would make,
Going up against that one.
someone has a question.
Yes, sir. My name's Terry Jackson. I happen to be on the building committee, and I was just going to try to address your question because
Okay.
our design group, what you're talking about there, Ken mentioned that we'd already put infrastructure under the ground stormwater, and Alan Henry, who is the one that's going to do our building when we're allowed to do that, was going to have to rearrange a bunch of stormwater, and it was going to be pretty costly in that driveway. If that would help answer your question.
To do what? What was going to be costly?
To have to move the driveway and change the stormwater. That's why I go, by memory, that's why.
Okay, but I was talking about just turning the building, not changing the site, the taps and so forth of the sewer. That was just a question I had in my mind.
Yes, sir.
I believe what Terry was suggesting there is that I believe the stormwater management pond area, if you move the building, you're going to be infringing on where the stormwater is going to be designed, the pond itself.
The pond is on the other side over here, I think. Other side of the lot.
Just to kind of go through for a moment what the ordinance requires you to consider on the variance issue, if I could. So under section 902.3, a variance may be granted if it's not contrary to the public interest, and when due to special conditions, literal enforcement would result in unnecessary hardship. Here, the public interest is obviously served, as we've already talked about, why the special exception would be listed. The unnecessary hardship, I would suggest to you, is in fact the expense that would be required by having to redesign, move infrastructure that's already in place, roads that have already been built, base courses that are already in place. And it would potentially, I don't know what the numbers are because I wasn't anticipating that question, but could actually, and maybe somebody on the building committee would be able to speak to it, could actually subvert the ability to do the project itself. So when you look at those things, the question is, are these, you have to grant a variance if there are special conditions and circumstances which are existed or peculiar to the land. And here, it's because of the size of the land that you have. But most of all, it's because of the improvements that you all have already been allowed by the county and the fact that they've paid substantial money for that. Again, the literal enforcement of the provisions, this is under 905.21. The literal interpretation of the provisions would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other property owners. Interestingly, Anywhere else in the county, if it wasn't in the Tuscarora zoning district, we wouldn't be having this conversation because the setbacks are just so wildly different. And in fact, if the current plan change that exists is actually with a 5-foot setback. If you look at the plan change that was originally approved as it currently exists, the BRLs are only 5 feet. So where we are is we're asking for somewhere between what's currently approved, what the county ordinance currently is, and less and more than that, but just less than what the 75 ordinance says. Again, the special conditions don't result from any action by the applicant. The applicant was operating in good faith when it did all the work that it did back in 2013, based upon approvals that it had from the county. I would suggest there's a West Virginia Code section 8A 512 that suggests that when a landowner has taken substantial action and incurred substantial funds as a result of governmental approval, it's a vested right that can't be taken away. And by forcing that change, you would be taking that right away. And again, the granting of this variance is not going to render any special privilege to these landowners. They are going to have to go through a rigorous review by this planning commission. This project is not going to get any shortcuts. It's going to be just like any other project. So I think you would have every confidence that by allowing this to go forward, this is going to be a project that we can all be proud of. That's kind of all I have for the moment. I think there are some members of the parish community that would like to speak as well.
I had some more questions. I'd like to ask.
Sure.
I'd like to ask some more questions before we start.
Okay.
Just a few of them I'd like to go through. How will the school change when it moves from where it is to the new location in terms of enrollment and size and so forth, square footage?
Is Melissa, how do you want to do? Do you want to ask the questions and then we can make sure? So Melissa Baggert is the principal of the school, and she is prepared to speak. I just want to.
Okay, no, I can just. They're pretty simple questions.
Okay,
I mean, I can ask her.
Why don't you just tell us what the questions
All
are,
right.
and then we'll make sure she addresses them.
I want to know what the enrollment is now and what the projection is for enrollment in the future. Not specific numbers. I mean, is it likely to? Are you Melissa?
Yes,
Is it likely to increase in the years to come?
yes, absolutely.
Do you have an idea of by how much?
That was part of the, some of the things that I was going to discuss.
Okay.
My name is Melissa Baggett. I am the principal at Rocky Knoll School. And, the school has been part of the Martinsburg community for many years. It was built back in the early 70s. Now, the current property in which the school's located was actually donated to the church so we could build a school. It currently they started with a metal building with 2 classrooms. As time went on, they grew a little bit. They decided to take one of the classrooms and to split it up to make 3 total classrooms. And then over time, they grew a little bit more. They built another section on to the school. It added 2 more classrooms, an office, there's a gym and like a board type room, teacher board room, you would say. So that's kind of how the history of the building is that we have now. We have one playground which is in the front of the building, but over the years the enrollment has increased, but due to the limited space that we have, we can't accommodate any more growth. In the recent past, we have had classrooms that were full, and unfortunately, we've had to turn away families because we just didn't have the student space due to the size of the building, the size of the classrooms. So now is a perfect time for us and the perfect opportunity because we have the property at the church to make this happen. So it's viable for us to continue to grow. Right now, we have 71 students. The new building would accommodate, I believe, up to 125 students. The capabilities of the new school would help the overall curriculum tremendously. We could offer more with our curriculum. We like to keep our ratio between students and teacher low. I know we've had a lot of influx in families that are interested in the school because I know in the public school they have larger numbers. So families are looking for other options. So there's a closer connection between the teacher and student because there's not as many students in the classroom. Like I said, we already have the property at the church. It would allow us to have a larger gym that would, we could use it for additional things like sport competitions for the community, special meetings for organizations, for programs like AA, Girl Scouts, things like that to use if needed. We would have a ball field. We would have more classrooms, not only more classrooms, but larger classrooms. The square footage is larger. We also have a music room, a commercial kitchen. So there's a lot of advantages that this new building will have for our overall curriculum for our school that I think is very important for the growth of Rocky Knoll. If we're not able to do something, then we will be stagnant. And I think Rocky Knoll has been a big part of this community for many years. And we have a lot of interest, and right now, unfortunately, we just can't accommodate that interest. And we'd like to have the ability to do that.
Do you have any intent on making it high school at some point, adding grades?
Probably not high school. With our conference, we have elementary schools, which is it encompasses the elementary as well as the middle school. But we have boarding academies, and we have a sister academy in Hagerstown. So it's very close. So we probably would not have a high school at this point.
Do you foresee that having additional activities, like other teams coming in perhaps to compete and so forth, that you have enough parking?
With the way the infrastructure is now and the way it has been designed, we do have ample parking that we could have if there's community sport teams or something that need. We will have, right now we have an elementary sized gym, but the new one will be, is it middle school, high school, Terry? High school size. So yes, it will be able to accommodate competitions and things as such.
I was just thinking about the parking because I was out there on Saturday during your services, and the parking lot was full, and that was for church.
Right, and we will, when they build the school, we will have additional parking in front of the school, facing the church, and then on the other side of the gym, that's a whole large parking lot back there.
Maybe you can address this, or someone else can, but where is the outside playground going to be, or the ball fields, or?
With the new building, we will have the opportunity to have 2 playgrounds, which is nice because we can have one for the lower grade and then one for the upper. Right here, this area back here, these are our lower grade classrooms, pre-KK, and we are going to have a fenced-in playground for those lower grade students. But then we will have a playground on the other side of this area here for the upper grades.
Is that also where the ball field might be?
Yes,
or
the ball field's
is this a
back here.
soccer field I see, or a football
yes,
field?
Yes, it's softball, soccer. Yeah, it's large enough.
Will that be
You could
lighted?
do-
Would that be a lighted outside facility for soccer and softball or whatever?
Yes.
It will be lighted?
Eventually, we will get, I'm not sure how far in the plans that is, but yes, we will be providing that at some point.
Okay.
Another question, just general questions. I don't know anything personally about the school, but is the school open to anybody or just families of the church? Their
To
children?
anyone,
Okay,
yes, in the community. We have a lot of community. folks
Okay.
out there.
that's good. And as far as how the kids get to school, is it their parents bring them?
Yes, we do not
Okay.
have buses. Parents do
Okay.
drive their students or their children to school.
Okay. You guys,
Any other questions?
anything else for?
Well, I know this is far-fetched. And I know it's looking way in the future. But just let me ask you, people who live in Chateau Gay, all right, might be inconvenienced if you're having a night game and lights are on or a crowd cheering and yelling. Now, I don't know if y'all have a stipulation somewhere within the school bylaws, there will be no outside athletic events after a certain time, or that sort of thing. That's my concern. I think it's a great thing that you're wanting to improve the school and provide that
Right.
education for more people. But my concern is what it might do. Listen, the building and that, I don't think is a big problem for me personally, but I wouldn't want a Chateau Gay person living there with their back door facing your fields, outdoor activities, with a noise factor involved now. That's my only concern.
Well, I can say that right now we do not have sport teams. They have had them in the past, but it's basketball.
Yeah, that's,
So right now, the fields would predominantly be used by the school, not necessarily for games at night.
okay,
You know, that's not in the works right now.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Steve Sianovich of Fox and Associates. I'd like to expand on the response with regard to parking, if I may.
Okay.
In a campus setting like this, and this is truly what it is normal and customary when we look at a shared parking approach. For example, I'm doing work similar for Highland View Academy up in Hagerstown. And in that particular instance, there's an installation for a conference center where we look at the parking globally. For example, when the school may have an evening activity, let's say basketball, most likely the church wouldn't be operating at that particular instance. And overflow parking, if you will, from the church could be utilized for the parents, the folks, the spectators coming to view the basketball game. And that goes both ways. If there was an activity at the church, a special activity that brought folks from out of town, for example, and the school would also offer or serve as overflow parking. I see that very commonly with other campuses like this. St. Marie Goretti High School in Hagerstown, the same way. We have St. Anne's Church with St. Maria Goretti High School, which has since been torn down, but the gym's still there. Where they share the church parking, and vice versa. On Sundays, people park in the Goretti lot. When there's a basketball game, people park in the church lot. So it is very common in this type of situation. Thank you.
Is that overflow, that's overflow parking next to the gym then, right?
This area?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd categorize it as overflow. It's parking that would meet
For school.
the geometric requirements of Berkeley County.
Is that, I think, I only saw like four additional parking spaces in front of the building. And then that parking lot next to the gym as additional parking spaces with the addition of the school.
That's correct. And when you look at the staff and the grades that attend this school, and as the principal indicated, there's no bus service. So
Yeah,
there's
the
parent
kids
drop-off.
aren't driving.
Kids aren't driving. Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
You guys will deal with parking. Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Doug Smith, County Engineer.
How do you do?
I wanted to help out a little bit. We do have, as far as the illumination standards go, there are illumination standards in the ordinance, and basically it is 0-foot candles at the property line, shields and cutoffs, so things aren't nuisance. There may be some overcast, depending on what type of lighting they prefer, whether it's halogen, halide, or whatever, the sodium lights. But it would be, I don't think it would be obtrusive to anyone. That light will be directed down at the field and be shielded. And I wouldn't see where that would be an issue. As far as the shared parking is concerned, we do have that in our ordinance. We have worked with several applicants over the past few months, county planner as well as myself, where we have worked with the shared parking program, and it does make a difference. It does create less asphalt, less dirty water for MS4, less impact on the environment, and it works well. And in this situation, this lends itself to it perfectly, because if there was a school activity in the evening, there's probably nothing going on at church, and all that parking is there. And we would encourage that.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
I may be out of place to talk about the lighting. Terry, am I correct? I think when the sun goes down at night.
You need to introduce yourself.
Yes, sorry. I'm David Livergood. I'm the pastor at the Martinsburg Adventist Church, who is the umbrella organization for the school that we've been operating there for, according to next year, be 50 years. 1973. I just want to ask Terry, pretty much when the sun goes down at night, we're not looking to have really big lights or anything like that. It's
Most, excuse me, most of the activities of the school, and I can see this gentleman back here, I'll come up here so it's not so rude to get around the fence. Most of it, I've had various positions at the school over the years, is coaching the young people. I'm very involved with the young people because that's a mission that's really important to me. Most of the activities that we have at the school, as far as our kids and stuff, you asked the question about how many community people there are.
Yeah.
Numbers right now about 70-30 roughly. So 70% are our community. Most of the activities of the school are in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock type of sports activities. A lot of the activities out there, Steve Catlin and I work together on a lot of things. Well, Steve's retired now, but he's still involved some. But Steve has had so many teams come from the community out there because we didn't have enough gyms in the school system to support it. And I've worked with Steve, and he's brought kids out there. I know we've had Little League teams play on that backfield, even though it really wasn't set up for that for the kids. So it's more community kids than it is Rocky Knoll kids at this point. But I don't foresee, and we don't know what's going to happen 25 years from now with the lights. I don't foresee the way we've had programs in the past, we ever have lights out there. You can't say ever, and I don't know what occurs whenever I'm dead and gone. But right now, I don't foresee us having any lights out there because it just doesn't fit in with what we do.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Again, my name is David Livergood, and I'm the pastor of the church, and we're a Seventh-day Adventist church, and we've been involved, our denomination has been involved with education since the 1870s, and currently we operate next to the Roman Catholic Church, the largest educational facilities around the world. So we operate about 8,500 schools all over the place with almost 2 million students. So education is, maybe a better way to say it, it's in our DNA. As a church, schools are something extremely important to us. And there's been all kinds of research in our denomination, academically, students that attend our schools, whether they're from our school or in our, part of the denomination, part of the community, that because of our schools being smaller in nature, they produce, the students do better academically, and they do better socially because there's more of an environment where there's more of a family. And so kids sometimes in our school here at Rocky Knoll, we've had kids come in from the community that weren't succeeding in other larger schools, but they come into our school and all of a sudden they just start doing better socially and academically. Sometimes they've come in where we're not able to help them because we don't have all the facilities, but so many times kids come in And it translates into these kids graduating and doing better because they've done academically, they've done better, and they succeed, it translates into a better citizens. And so in our smaller schools, we have just more opportunities for leadership. There's more opportunities to lead and to be involved with the community. And with that just comes huge benefits to our local community. As we mentioned, about 70% of our students are from the community, not part of our church, but we just want to serve as a school. We just feel like we want to benefit our community, and so we don't. We look with only positive thoughts towards serving 70% of our kids, not part of our church or our denomination. And with smaller classrooms comes closer relationships, and kids are just more likely to succeed in a more family environment. And so, to put it in a nutshell, a smaller school in our community translates to a better, safer, more well-educated community. And that's what we're all about, because we want these kids, when they graduate from our school, they don't go somewhere else. Sometimes they go, but so often they come and they go to our high schools, our local high schools, and they translate into they morph into our community and become our leaders. And so we want a school that we can make a bigger and better impact on our schools, in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize, I feel like I've used my turn up and I might have got my turn. My name's Terry Hess, and I was born and raised here, and my family's been in this area for generations. And I'm proud to call this my home. And I want to personally thank each of you for serving on this committee. It's a tough job. Not too many people want to volunteer for it because it's kind of a thankless job, but as far as I'm concerned, it's an important job. This community has really blessed me. It's a place that I've grown up, went to local schools. I've got a couple businesses here. I love this area, and I think we have something to be very proud of. And I know that's what you all are trying to make sure we can have that for our kids and grandkids, and that's what I'm all about. My wife and I built JD's Family Fun Center in Inwood for that very reason, because when I grew up here, we didn't have too much. And, we built that up there, and it's kind of what I see. I've worked with Rocky Knoll from '64 as long as I can remember. And it's not a new business moving in here that's coming into our town and going to try to change the way we live, the way we do things. It's something that has served here for 50 years. My kids went through that school. That's several family members and friends, thousands of kids are going through the school. And we need your help too, and we want to do it the right way. We're a good corporate citizen. We won't do any shortcuts, that's for sure. We want a facility that the homeowners around there can be proud of. We don't want our neighbors to say, look at that ugly thing up on your hill. We want everybody to be proud of it. And one of the reasons that we're leaving where we're at is, let's face it, that building's seen its better days. In fact, I don't know how it's lasted 50 years, to be honest with you, some of the building there, but it has. The Lord's blessed and it's been there. But we need a new facility to go another 50 years, and we need your help to do that. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Good? My name is Sean Loomis. I'm a parent of one of the students, probably one of the most rowdy students in the kindergarten school. He unfortunately takes after his dad, but his teacher's sitting back there. And in the words of her words exactly, she teaches excellence. Okay? And her goal is for these students to master certain skills. So I got 4 things here, and if you want, you can write them down. One is intentional, priority, family, and non-member families. Those 4 things we're going to hit on real quick. This school is intentional on building relationships with each one of the students. My wife and I, we adopted our nephew. He went to another Seventh-day Adventist school up in Frederick, and had a great experience there. But when we met Melissa Baggett and her team, it was an entirely different vibe. And what Melissa brings to the table, and I've watched her in my home when I've had her over for dinner, I've watched her at church, and I've watched her around the community. She is intentional at connecting with each one of those students. So is Jorge Mendoza, who is the 6th and 7th grade teacher. Miss Bankus, she is, I think, 3rd and 4th grade, is that correct? Each one of these teachers has made an impact on my son, and he's only 6. And for him to be in kindergarten and reading and loving math, I mean, this kid's nuts about math. I don't know if you've ever been nuts about math, but my son is. Okay, so intentionality is important. The third thing, priority on scholastic excellence. I've not seen a kindergarten teacher who puts forth that much time and that much effort. If he misses one day of school, you should see the amount of homework he comes home with. She jam-packs that day in with so much creativity. I don't know how you do this. She gave me some homework today because he was sick. I'm looking at this homework and I'm like, I don't understand this. But my son does. And he's telling me, Daddy, this is how we do this is how we do that. Because academic excellence for kindergartners is a top priority for Miss Bogus. And I admire that about her. And she gets some pushback on that from me, but she stands her ground professionally. And she stands up for those kids. The other thing that she does, and each one of these teachers do, and I wish my teachers would have done this, is they make sure that each one of those students know that they are loved by two beings. Number one, them, the teacher. Number two, the God who created us all. Okay? 2 more right here, as soon as my phone opens up. Family closeness. As Terry said, we have a 70-30 mix. There are families there that do not attend our church, but they are our families. My wife and I have gotten to know some of those families, and we've helped some of those families out because their families aren't around. They've asked, hey, can you watch my son, my daughter? Can you help out with XYZ? That's what Rocky Knoll brings. And over the years growing up in this area, I've watched the families of Rocky Knoll. They have a closeness and a tightness that not other schools have. I really appreciate that. Non-member families not affiliated with the church have become friends or families that are close to us. And they have businesses in this area. If you want some great catering, I suggest that you check out Lady Jade. She caters every Friday for lunch over there. It's delicious. It's her home cooking is good. That's good. But I wouldn't have known about her and her business, and we wouldn't be inviting her out to, something that we're building out in Carneysville. And I'm glad I've gotten to know her and her family. Her husband and I have become close friends. We text each other. This is what Rocky Knoll brings to the community that I think a lot of other schools should be bringing to the community, but because of the size and the amount of pressure that's put on them, it's difficult. So I'm glad that Rocky Knoll is here, and I'm excited that we're growing. I'm excited that we have to grow. I mean, space is limited there. If you ever get a chance to walk through, just check it out with Melissa. She'll take you right through. But as for me and my son and my wife, we are really proud of this team right here and what they're trying to accomplish. And I thank you guys for chipping in and helping out too. And do you have any questions? No? All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Philip Blair. I'm a father of Katie Blair. Stand up, Katie. I made him come tonight. He's a student there for 8 years now. He's in 5th grade. We asked how he's been 8 years. He's done 2 years of pre-K, 1 year kindergarten. He's now in 5th grade. So he's getting a little bit of seniority now in the school. I grew up as a Methodist. So I'm not a Christian based on the Seventh-day Adventist. My wife is. But I grew up as a Methodist, a native of Berkeley County, and we got my son started in the pre-K with the aspect of being cost-effective daycare. And so once we got through pre-K, he started kindergarten and kept on. Our plans are now to keep him there till 8th grade, and he'll probably go to public high school from there on out. My biggest aspect of this new school is, and I don't know if Kim Harris is here tonight, but she has my phone blowing up a good bit. And the reason for that is the school that we have now is in bad shape. And I'm the maintenance man, one of many of them. And it's becoming a struggle keeping up with this building. And, you know, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to get this new building built. I told Katie he might get to graduate 1 year out, you know, get 1 year out of school. He might, but there's another aspect of it too, that we're on the web with the school. I own and operate Sunset Water Services. And when you have a well and you're dealing with the public, you have to have a chlorinator, you have to have an operator. Mr. Mark Walker is back here. He is our licensed operator for the school. It's taxing on him also, you know, to take care of this. So getting on this on the public water will be huge for us, huge in many ways than one. That's another aspect that we're dealing with on this old school. We was talking about parking earlier too. I don't know if you all been out to the school that we currently have right now. The parking's going to be enormous compared to what we have now. I do the snow removal too, and you know, the teachers right now are actually parking in the grass. They're parking in the mud. And I was asked the other day if I could plow the dirt, and it's just like, you know, I didn't want to, but that's where we're at. So if we could get this school approved some way somehow, it'll be nothing but benefits for us. So if you all have any questions for me, I'll answer them. But I'll keep it short and sweet. I hope that answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Or is that? That's all? You guys have any more comments, questions?
No, not me.
I think the main thing for me is, and I think it was answered, this has gone through a couple of different steps, like 2013, well, the school was built in, what's this, 89 or something, and then it purchased additional property, and then the plan was to put a school there. So it was submitted in 2013, but it wasn't under the scope of the Tuscarora district, which is why I don't understand why that happened. Because I guess most of it's in the Tuscarora district. So when I saw that, I started thinking, well, I don't have any problem with the project at all. Okay, I don't have any problem with it. We're here to talk about the setbacks, and which is a variance, and a special exception to be used as a school. I don't have any problems with those things, except the setback. We have to consider our neighbors, and part of that property, there aren't any neighbors. It's wooded, and then the Church of Christ, I think it is there, and then Chateau Gay. So it affects mainly Chateau Gay, and the person that's up on the hill, Janet Stevens, I think her name is. So that's my main issue, and I don't know if anybody can answer why it didn't go through the Tuscarora zoning and was subject to the setbacks at that time.
I think I can speak to it a little bit. At the time that came through, and I looked through the files, there wasn't a Board of Zoning Appeals to come before, and I think that's the simple answer. I just don't think that they created a BZA to have them go before the board. So it's as simple as it is. I couldn't find any documents either. For what it's worth, the plan change that came through, it didn't actually propose any structures. It was just the parking areas and the gravel and the play area. In the back.
There's been a lot of grading done out there, but they're in
The grading would have been
curb.
covered through the grading permits or any other permits through the engineering and permitting office, but that wouldn't have necessarily had to come before the planning department and planning commission.
Mr. Campbell, if I could speak to one issue. Obviously, this is the second public hearing that you as a body have conducted as is currently constituted. The public hearing, it's published, there's signs posted, and people are on notice. And as you may recall from the last meeting, you had a lot of people who were here objecting to that project.
Right.
It's the obligation of the party if they don't like it. And the next door neighbor, for example, the sign is right in front of the church. There's a sign that says, hopefully the new sign of Rocky Middle School, but there's a sign that there's a public hearing tonight. I would suggest that if that neighbor had a problem with the project, they would come and speak their piece. There's also, as you may recall from your first meeting, that there's a community organization, Mill Point, Chateau Gay, and I can't remember.
Mountain Brook Estates.
I'm sorry, Mountain Brook Estates. They have homeowners association. They're kind of an organization that are working together. There's no one, they were here objecting to the project last time. They're not here tonight. So I think that speaks volumes. You're in some ways a deliberative body. You get the evidence before you to make the decisions. You have no evidence before you that there's any objection in the community. This is going to be a great project for this community, and we would ask that you move it forward. Thank you.
I only have one other thing. I know it's already been answered, but just to clear my mind, any changes made to the structure itself, the school building, including the gymnasium, if that is changed in any manner, that will cost substantial dollars to be spent that was not in the building budget. Am I correct in that? Okay.
Yes, that is good.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say in general, thank you to everybody that came out, whether you speak or not. I mean, our job up here, you know, if nobody shows up, we have to make decisions based off of, you know, the couple people that talk and our own judgments. So we do appreciate that you all came out tonight and spoke or showed up to show support for the project. So you want to make a motion?
You would, before you do anything else, you would, if you're done with the public hearing,
Close it.
need to have a motion.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Anyone against the project here? No. I make a motion, we end the public portion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Close the public portion. And do we want to make a motion to?
I motion to vote on the project as it's presented.
So we have to make the motion to grant the special.
And the variance.
I mean, you can style the motion in various ways. If you're ready to actually vote on it, you don't really. You could make a motion that you have a vote on it, but you might as well just make a motion to either accept or grant or deny each of the special exception. I would do them separately. The special exception is one, and then the variance is another one. Just so it's clear if somebody wants to dispute it in the future, that maybe if one was granted and one wasn't, you don't want it.
So just to be clear though, this is a step in the process. It'll go back to the planning commission and zoning.
It'll be.
We still, as in the engineering and planning departments, we still have other comments that need to be revised by the engineering firm. So it'll follow the same process with any other plan approval with the planning commission. We'll review it, go back to the engineer, they'll address the comments, get it back to us. It's then advertised for another public hearing for a 21-day period to go before the planning commission for approval.
I wasn't aware that there were more coming because I asked for that information and you gave us all the information there was at that time, but I didn't realize it was going to continue then after tonight.
Yes.
Well, so this is just a small piece in the whole approval process. So with the major plan change, there's a public hearing associated with that.
Laura, would that kind of is that piecemealed also?
So the public hearing is for approval, so that would be the approval for the project.
For the
to
whole
go forward.
project,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
And that's what the planning commission.
And that's the planning
Yeah.
commission's decision. Yes.
Okay,
But they won't get to that spot.
unless we do something. Yeah.
Correct.
Right, most of the engineering comments hinge on them getting this approval in order for me to resolve those outstanding
Okay.
comments. In other words, we have to know where the building sets to be able to resolve.
We wanted this to be resolved prior to going before planning commission, because
Right.
technically we can't advance it to a public hearing for planning commission's decision without this being rectified.
So I guess, first, could I have a motion to, accept the special exception to allow the school?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Just for the record, it's grant. Grant the special exception.
Grant the special exception to, construct the elementary school.
I'll make a motion that we grant the special exception to accept the elementary school.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And then could we have a motion to grant the variance on the front and side setbacks for the school?
I'll motion to grant the setbacks for the front and side for the school project.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Both special exception and the variance is passed. I guess the next thing on our agenda would be any staff updates or discussion.
I don't have anything.
Okay. I guess next would be a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ken.